Everyone, welcome. Thanks so much for being here. Super happy you could make it. We know that here in Portugal, 9 o'clock is dinner time for many people. But glad you could make it. And I think tonight is really special for our community because we have Douglas joining us online. He's in Canada right now. He's going to talk about AI and where it's heading. But the special thing about this is that Douglas is actually one of the co-founders of this community, which has turned into a legal association in Portugal, the CASCAIS AI HUB. So thanks, Douglas, for being the one that kicked it off 2 months ago, I think it was. And so a few words about Douglas before I hand it over to you. Oh, Stuart. Yeah. So back in was it 2002, right? You wrote Our Molecular Future, predicting how nanotechnology, robotics, and AI would reshape the world. And you are often credited as one of the first authors to write seriously about the singularity. And a lot of what you wrote about that time is actually happening right now. And that's why it's really it's kind of intense for us getting your opinion on what is going to happen in the next 5 years. You've also co-founded a biotech company, the first CEO of Ukraine's largest commercial TV network, and you advise governments on technology and sustainability. All-round guy. And guys, when Douglas talks about AI, it's worth listening to him closely and with attention. So we're quietly working on your return to Portugal, right? We were hoping for to see you here again. And
me too.
No peer pressure. and again, thank you for being with us. And the floor is hereby yours.
Mikhail, thanks very much. I do have some presentation notes here, but you're not going to see anything on the screen because my experience is that if people are busy reading things, they absorb less. So you're going to have to look at me, unfortunately. But I'll be happy to distribute my presentation notes later. The title of this is AI, Quick Money, Slow Science, and the Darwinian Future of Intelligence. And the subtitle is How to Gain from Fast Wins and R&D Error Correction, Then Prepare for Explosive Diversity. So that's a mouthful. And before we start, I always like to say, first of all, just for those of you who might have just come in, this is being recorded. So just so everyone is aware of that. And what I would like to ask quickly is I'd like to go around the room, and maybe Mikhail can narrate this, and ask everyone in about 15 seconds each to list your top AI skills, any other business skills that you're using to leverage AI, and any project that you care to mention. And Mikhail, I'll leave it to you to choose people.
All right. Well, I'll break the ice and start myself. Mine is the macro part of it, the strategy part of it, and the business side of it is my old business, which was basically creativity. So that's me. I'll throw it over to Hugo Monteiro because we just had a meeting today when we were talking about some of this stuff. So.
Okay. Thank you, Mikhail. In 15 seconds, I am a managing partner of Action Coach in Lisbon. I am a business coach and executive coach. I work with small medium enterprise here in Portugal. And in my other life, I was engineering. I was a programmer, so I love AI. So right now I'm working with OpenClaw. I'm exploring, so I'm learning. So here I am. I'm just here to learn a couple of things. Thank you.
Yeah. Booman. What about you? Saba? Okay.
Seems like he logged out.
Eli. Oh,
Ooh.
sure.
Oh, there he is.
Saba, what about you?
Hello. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. Currently busy developing an AR system. Of course, using AI. The goal is to achieve visualizing the apartments before they're being built using the AR VR glasses, basically. And in general, with AI, I used to develop and optimize the cost of businesses using the open source projects, mixing them with AI and cutting the business costs, basically. But my main job is web development. I create outsourced websites using the GSAP animation libraries and framer motion, etc., etc. It used to be a lot of manual work, but with the cloud skills, the MCPs and stuff like that, it became much easier, and we are creating really nice stuff and hoping to create better the future with better design, basically.
Cool.
I hope you got my idea. Yeah.
Totally. Amanda, you there? Do you want to
Yeah.
talk or?
No, it's
Cool.
okay. Hi, everyone. So I work as a creative director, and I use it more for just creative outputs and generate a lot of the ideas that I have to make it streamline and do the node-based workflow so I can generate multiple assets. And also building now 2 different companies that I'm going to talk with you later on about. Because it's the TBD.
Are you still in Portugal, Amanda?
Right now I'm in Sweden, but coming back on Sunday, maybe, I think. Sunday or Monday.
Okay, cool. Cool. Actually, you remember in the last meetup we had?
Yeah.
Douglas was actually the person you were talking to.
I remember. So I met you, but I haven't met you, Douglas.
Yes. Aaron, you want to say a couple of words about what you're working with?
Yes, I'm Aaron Margolis. I'm looking at AI for math and engineering, essentially looking at and geometric intuition, helping AI use geometric intuition.
Cool. We talked a little about that last time. I remember. Cool. Eric, you want to go?
Well, I'm into video production, so I've been editing videos for 20 years, and now I'm working in the intersection of automation and AI video generation, and I'm studying how not to make AI slop, so make quality content with these tools.
That's a great comment. All right, Anthony, you there?
Hi.
Hey, man.
I'm a software engineer. I use AI to do a lot of my building and coding now. And I guess I'm using it more for clients and starting to integrate into their businesses and like move some of their systems, I guess, over to more cognitive tasks. So starting to expand out the kind of services. And so, yeah.
Cool. Great. Andreas, are you there? Or you prefer, I know you're working at the same time that you're listening to us, but if you want to just hop in and talk about what you're doing, would be great. If not, we'll just move on. Okay. Lisa, you there?
Yes.
Hey, Lisa.
So Hello. Yeah, I come from my background is like a plant science, and now I work more like in a pharmaceutical industry and like a cannabis industry. So I'm excited about like new opportunities that AI can give us in the field of like bioinformatics and using it like in more like with the peptides, for example, like a lot of new developments, but in general, to use it also for, to make your life filling Excel easier, for example, cleaning data easier, like applications like this. So,
Yeah, awesome. Cool.
and
Thanks.
nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Andreas, do you have 15 seconds?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey guys, super nice to meet all of you. So I run an agency. I've been working in advertising for the last 30 years as creative director and owner of agencies. So I'm in, the field, one of the fields that are really heavily, heavily affected by AI.
Yeah.
And finding out all the ways that we can use it, all the ways where it's not good enough yet. I can, among other things, say that Eric is an excellent editor, helping us with some things that they can't figure out yet. But of course, there's so many ways that over the last 2 years our day-to-day work has been changed. And we also have quite a few young employees. So we're figuring out how to train them in the best way because they don't have that experience always. So how do you use AI when you don't have that experience? How do you build that trust, and how do you don't, so yeah, that's longer than 15 seconds, but
Yeah.
well,
That's okay. It's very interesting. Cool. Thanks. Elena, you there? You want to talk about what you're using AI for? That's my wife, actually. By the way.
Yes, thank you. So, as a few of you know, I came from the cannabis space, medical cannabis field. I work with Lisa as well, so I invite her to be present here as well and know you.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome, dear. Yes, so I use AI because as a health coach, I see a huge opportunity to use AI as a tool for mental health. So I'm finishing my own first app. I'm very proud of myself because this is a new. Everything is new for me, of course, in this not in the area of mental health, but in this using these tools. So I see this as a huge opportunity to make incredible things happen and help other people, not just with ideas, but also with help them. So yeah, I use a lot of AI. I'm really passionate about it. And I learned a lot with you, Mikael. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Cool.
Yes.
Happy. Stuart, you there? You want to talk, or are you occupied? Right. If you just would love to hear about your adventures. If not, we can just go to the next. So Adrian, you there?
I am here. I'm not on camera because my kids are running around, so excuse that.
Well, ours are too.
So I'm very much coming at this from the business end rather than the technical end. I'm not a technical person at all. I run an international recruiting and headhunting firm, and we are using AI to an extent, but I'm interested in the innovations within AI so that we can drive cost optimization, service differentiation, and use the innovation to future-proof. I think that in a services business, you're either going to innovate with AI and drive these things forward, or you're probably going to die. So interested to see how we can innovate and continue to push service provision.
Cool. Thanks, Adrian. Thanks. I think that's all of them. All of us. Yeah. So am I missing somebody? No. Okay. Douglas, the floor is
Great.
yours.
Well, as you can see, it's a real mixed group. And so thing I want to emphasize right at the top is that's why this is a non-technical helicopter view. And also Mikhail has asked me to keep it that way, keep it simple. And Mikhail, I'm going to ask also if anyone wants to ask a question as we go through this, just put your hand up. And Mikhail, if you could moderate, then that would be great. So just very briefly, we're going to start with where AI creates fast money most reliably compared to high risk that gets a lot of people into a lot of trouble. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but you should be aware that it's high risk. Avoidable mistakes that many AI entrepreneurs make. There's a grand total of a 10% success rate over the past 2 to 3 years in AI startups. Then we're going to go into upgrading R&D across all domains, and we've got at least 2 biomedical people here, and I'm a third. So that's something that's close to my heart, but it's not just biomedical. It's any type of R&D, whether it's into electric cars or electric neurological signals. And finally, the tricky stuff, and that is the coming emergence of diversity of biological and technological intelligence across all domains. And this is going to change not only what we do, but what we are as a species and what other species are as well. And then we're going to close, and I hope to emphasize this, what we can do about it, if anything, and what the new association and the chat groups can do about it as well. So that's a quick look at what we're going to be doing. I just want to tell you how I got into this because, like you, it was a somewhat unusual pathway. We spent the past 30 years creating products that are healthy for people and the environment, that have a positive, beneficial impact rather than being just less bad. There's this idea out there that that humans are bad for the environment and we just have to be less bad. We take a completely different tack and we say humans can be good for the environment and have a positive impact. We just have to redesign the way we make things. And that's what we've been helping people do, from molecules to neighborhoods and back again. But having said that, and we've done this all over the world, but in the mid-1990s, as I was going through all of these technologies that we were using to optimize environmentally safe and healthy processes, it rapidly became apparent to me that technology was outpacing the environmental innovation. Absolutely. The environmental folks were and still are, to a large degree, in the dark ages. And so I basically quit what I was doing for 2 years and decided to look into what was really happening. I moved to Santa Barbara just to be close, because they had a nanotechnology school in the 1990s, still do. And the result of that, as Mikhail mentioned, was this book, Our Molecular Future, which looks at the convergence of nanotechnology, genetics, robotics, and artificial intelligence, when most people actually didn't know what those words meant. And we got into things like, saying crazy things like 3D manufacturing, which we carried some of the first photographs of, was going to take over manufacturing, and AI was going to change what we are as a species. And that got some rather interesting reactions. So that was the result of that. But one of the reasons I did that, and when I was looking into it, I was captivated by the fact that there were so many people who were so much smarter than me, all saying the same thing. And that was, we're building our replacements, quite simply put. Werner Wingate, who some of you might have heard of, who actually coined the term singularity. He's a retired mathematics professor from University of California. He is basically the one who said that the day that AI becomes self-aware will be the day that the human technological primacy ends. And he predicted it would happen somewhere between 2025 and 2030. Bill Joy, I don't know how many have heard of Bill Joy, but Bill Joy is the guy who wrote the Unix program for Apple computers. And he wrote an essay in 2000 called Why the Future Doesn't Need Us. And he basically pointed out that advanced technology is going to exceed human control and human ability to control it. And basically called for a bit of a timeout to see where this was going. All of these warnings have been roundly ignored. So that's where we are right now. But then I came down to a more practical level around 2010, starting in 2010, because I faced a couple of specific problems. One, in my experience in working with scientists, which I've been working with scientists for many, many years, I realized that science is notoriously slow to correct its own mistakes. And I'm going to give you an example of that a little bit later. But secondly, when I started a biotech startup to reverse hardening of the arteries, I realized that the regulatory costs of proving biodistribution and safety and all kinds of things with new drugs was horrendously expensive, exceedingly slow, and fraught with pitfalls, which is why 95% of all pharmaceuticals that go through clinical trial testing fail, usually at the most expensive stage, which explains why so many of our drugs are so expensive. So I realized that in order to transform healthcare, we needed a different tool, and that tool was definitely AI. So all of those things inspired me to get into this. And so I'm going to just go through this in three parts. And part one is the current state, most of you are familiar with. But in general terms, AI is becoming a new general purpose cognitive infrastructure layer across all sectors. It's making its way into the fundamental structure of our economy and our society. It's not just an add-on. It's not just a tool. It's really a fundamental layer that is being built in, without which we will not be able to do. This is for sure. It's a little bit like electricity and the internet, but now it's affecting our language, our reasoning, and our decision-making very directly. And that's the difference between this and one of the differences between this and other revolutions, which means that humans are shifting from executing tasks to guiding systems that partially think. Thinking is no longer purely internal to human beings. There's a different kind of thinking going on. It might not be self-awareness yet, but it can be categorized as a type of thinking that is supplementing and in many ways exceeding our own ability to think. And the interesting thing it did in the very short run, and this is a warning note for anyone who's doing a startup and has IPOs starry-eyed, the current AIs, the startups, are in the thousands and are grossly overvalued. And how do we know that? We know that because the IPOs with AIs are taking massive haircuts. So they're being downvalued when they hit the IPO stage. So that's just signifies that we're in a hype, and that hype comes down to earth when it hits the IPO stage. So that's kind of a very quick overview of the current state of the AI world. And of course, there's a lot more. This disruptive trend is not new for tech. We saw it with the internet, we saw it with the Industrial Revolution, we saw it with the post-industrial revolution. But what's new is the speed of progress, as we know. It's logarithmic, it's exponential. There's an old saying that caffeine lets us do stupid things faster. And the real question is, AI caffeine on steroids, or is it something to fix that problem? And at the moment, the jury is still out on that, because both things are happening at the same time. It's letting us do really stupid things really fast. It's doing really stupid things on its own. But on the other hand, it's letting us correct a lot of our most egregious mistakes. And just, one example can be the way that prescriptions are doled out, drug prescriptions. AI has a 1.5% error rate compared to 2.5 error rate for pharmacists. And you can see similar examples in the way that radiologists read X-rays and all types of scans. The error rate for AI is much lower and the detection rate is much higher. The progress is nonlinear. It's self-accelerating, it's global, and it's simultaneous. Now, that is a fantastic combination. And I just want to give one disruptive example that actually showed up for those of you who are going through the CASCAIS AI chat. The risks and benefits. I don't know how many of you have looked at OpenClaw, but OpenClaw is basically the first open source agent that was really designed for everybody to use. There's a beautiful YouTube video on it that you can all watch. There's a link to it actually in one of the recent AI chats. And what you will see in this YouTube story is that this is incredibly disruptive because its growth has been logarithmic. It has forced the big players, all the big players, Anthropic, Meta, Microsoft, all of them, to start releasing their own agents instead of keeping them to themselves. But the result has been shocking because people are losing control of their computers. And one example that was given was that the security director for Meta was experimenting with OpenClaw and instructed it not to screw around with anything on her computer, and it immediately erased 200 of her emails. She actually had to go over the wall and pull out the plug on her computer to stop OpenClaw because it's embedded right in your own operating system. So ask AI about OpenClaw, pros and cons, and you'll see a big, huge caveat. This has severe security risks associated with it. I'm going to get back to security later. The other disruptive trend that we're seeing that I think everybody has to pay careful attention to, that we can help mitigate and we can benefit from if we're smart about it, is what the Guardian calls AI malaise. This is the conflict between bitter skepticism and blind optimism. And one of the examples that I just want to give recently is here we have an AI community that is very AI literate. When they opened up the AI chat on WhatsApp, guess what happened? More than 100 bots invaded it. So if that's happening at the level of AI experts, you can only imagine what's happening at the level of everyone else. Now, what the implications of this are that on one hand, this gives us democratic empowerment, and on the other hand, it could lead to despotism. And I'm going to come back to this democracy issue a little later in the presentation. It also comes back to ultra-organization versus chaos and how one can lead to the other. So none of this is new. It's all happened previously, but the speed at which it's happening, this OpenClaw was only released a short while ago, and now there's thousands of these, or hundreds of thousands of them, trolling the internet, doing repetitive tasks at lightning speed, and causing all kinds of trouble for the people who put them in their operating systems. Okay, so now let's talk, just throw that back out of the window for a moment, and let's talk about where the fast money is for agile innovators. This really gets down to very narrow practicalities, and I'm just going to pause here for a minute because this is very important. And it's more to do with business than it is to do with AI. First of all, the trick to getting the fast money is to sell immediate economic value, which I heard several people mention, which is good during the introductions, rather than AI. So you're not selling AI. You're selling immediate economic value. And that economic value, as a couple of people mentioned during their introductions, save time, increase revenues and savings, and reduced risk. So I'll just say that again. Save time, increased revenue, and reduced costs, and reduced risk. The best opportunities based on those short-term economic values are to optimize repetitive workflows, number one, 2, information-heavy tasks, and 3, linking scattered domain knowledge. Now, what do I mean when I say linking scattered domain knowledge? Thousands and thousands of companies have got data all through their systems parked in different places. They don't have the faintest idea how to put it together. It is not in the same format. It is not using the same measurements. And AI is very, very good at linking that scattered knowledge and then aligning it. So repetitive workflows, information-heavy tasks, and linking scattered domain knowledge. And the fastest money related to all of that is if you can identify a very narrow problem, a specific customer, and an immediate measurable benefit. And you really need to do all 3 of those if you're going to make fast money. So that's the very short term for innovators who are looking for, where to make the money. And I'm just going to go into quickly high confidence, quick wins, automating business processes like administration work and workflows, accelerating sales and marketing, content generation systems, supporting professional services like R&D, legal, and financial advice, and AI integration consulting, which includes overcoming fear about AI itself. There is nothing to fear but fear itself. Well, in this case, it's not necessarily true. So that, I'm going to pause there, Michael, to see if anyone has put their hand up.
Anyone?
Not yet?
Questions so far?
We got one hand? Yes? No?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, I'll keep going then.
Proceed.
All right. So there are 5 common AI entrepreneurial mistakes. And these together are leading to a 90% fail rate in AI startups across the board in the last 2 to 3 years. So that means that 90% of the AI companies that were in business 2 years ago are out of business or have been absorbed. First of all, not testing your personal assumptions. That means building the tool before you're talking to users or talking to not enough users. And there's an old saying in this industry, when I say industry, across all industrial enterprises, and that is most of the big mistakes are made in the first and last 5 minutes. And the first 5 minutes consist of your assumptions, what assumptions that you've made. And I just want to give an example of that in environment, which is, and this particular example has pervaded all kinds of industries. It's called life cycle assessment. When you're trying to assess the environmental impact of your product, so you can see if you're compliant or whatever. So life cycle assessment is said to be an objective measure of environmental impacts. It is anything but. And the reason for that is because as soon as you start the process, the first thing you do is you scope the product. So are you starting with the product itself, or are you starting with, for example, the materials that make the product, the manufacturing processes that are used, then the use of the product itself, and finally what happens to the product and where it ends up, and anywhere in between. So actually, most of these life cycle assessments are not comparable at all because of the subjective assumptions that go into the scoping. And it's the same thing with AI projects, exactly the same thing. The second thing is building AI platforms from scratch instead of using existing platforms to rebuild and optimize other systems. Now, that's not to say that building AI platforms from scratch is bad, but history is suggesting it's extremely risky. So new platforms are high risk and high reward, whereas using several months old, somewhat tried and true platforms is going to be a lot less risky. And a lot of AI entrepreneurs, again, get a little starry-eyed about their idea and do inadequate research only to find it doesn't work for various reasons. Another one, and I'm sure a lot of people will identify with this, is over-engineering solutions, being anal retentive, basically. And that is competing on the technology instead of the distribution of the product. And this is because a lot of AI experts, although I'm happy to see that they're not exclusively AI experts in the room, are all excited about the technology rather than actually getting out and selling it. It's kind of like authors writing books, but being lousy at marketing. You know, writing the book is 10% of the problem. The other 90% is marketing the book, which most authors conveniently forget. So the next one is targeting everyone. Well, my app is for everybody instead of niches and getting distracted by an embarrassment of riches. If there's anything you can say about AI today, it is massively diverse. And so it's very easy to say halfway through or a quarter of a way through your project, oh, and I'm going to go here, and oh, I'm going to incorporate this tool, and that, and that. And the next thing you know, you're in a mess. So this targeting everyone instead of niches is a disease that needs to be cured. And finally, and last but not least, ignoring trust. And trust has several levels. It was surprising to me in a couple of our meetups that I heard so many people giving cloud access to their cloud and to their emails and to their operating systems without reading the fine print on how cloud actually works. This is a real problem. It doesn't become apparent maybe until a few months or even a year down the road, but there is massive legal liability attached to this. And so people need to be really careful about what they're allowing these bots to access, not only in their own systems, but in their clients' systems. And I know that some people that I spoke to are very acutely aware of this, but this is turning out to be one of the #1 challenges. And just for those of you who might not know, there is an organization that came out of the Linus project, which is called Trust Over IP. It's all one word, Trust Over IP. And they are specifically working on the trustworthiness of AI as it relates to IP. And so if you're interested in seeing the latest, I would go to Trust Over IP. They're an extremely interesting organization. They're mostly volunteers, and they're global, and they have quite a large membership. So this issue of ignoring trust is going to become bigger and bigger and bigger. And also it means that misinformation is becoming easier to generate and harder to detect. Our group is still struggling with which bots are bots and which bots are real people, although that's busy being cleaned up. But you can see that it's a real problem. So not testing assumptions, building platforms from scratch instead of using what's at hand, over-engineering solutions, targeting everyone instead of a niche market, and ignoring trust. You have to overcome those things if you want to be a successful entrepreneur.
Douglas, we have a question. Saba, do you have anything you want to ask?
No, it was an accident. Sorry, I'm just
Okay, cool. Okay,
great. What this leads to, and I want to put a big exclamation mark beside this, is the rising role of generalists. And what I mean by that is that there's a classic situation of can't see the forest for the trees in AI and in a lot of tech development. But it leads to a lot of these mistakes that I just spoke about. So it's very important in your own business to make sure that somewhere along the line you have a generalist, someone with general business experience, someone with experience putting nonprofit organizations together or putting startups together, who may have no AI experience whatsoever. And these generalists, I believe, are critical, because the common assumption today is that AI success belongs to technical specialists, and that's simply not the case. I mean, if you go way back to Microsoft, Bill Gates wasn't a particularly astute programmer, but he was a great businessman, and he knew what to steal and when. And that's what made Microsoft, what it is today. So a lot of failures occur because this big picture is ignored. So choosing the wrong problems, misunderstanding what the workflow actually is, misunderstanding your audience, and building technically impressive systems where they actually create relatively little real value. And I can't emphasize the latter one enough. There's lots of technically great systems out there that just don't make money. And that's why a lot of these AI startups are grossly overvalued, because most of them have not proven their worth in generating revenue or savings, including a lot of the most highly valued startups out there. So this is where generalists who know very little about AI are becoming extremely valuable, and I can only encourage you to seek out those generalists and to make sure you include them as part of your business or your project activity. So what I wanted to do now was to narrow down to a particular sector, and the reason I chose this is because I'm involved in it, so I know a little bit about it. I've been working on it for the past 20 or 30 years, and so I want to talk about the R&D problem and how we can actually benefit from it in this group and in this association. So for the 2 or 3 medical or biotech people in the room, you know that translational R&D, that's translating from the bench to the bedside. That's what they call it. Translating programs, software, drug products, or whatever, is often built on hidden personal assumptions, as I mentioned before. Most mistakes happen in the first and last 5 minutes. And I just want to give you an example of the last 5 minutes, because it happened directly with a group I was involved with. We developed this new methodology for applying the development of healthy products that are healthy for people and the environment. And we developed a certification mechanism for it, and the market started telling us that it didn't want the developers and the certifiers in the same patch together, which is absolutely correct. The certifier should be separate, whether it's AI or drug development or healthy products. So we created a nonprofit association, and we gave it a name, and the original name was the Certification Institute. And at the very last minute, the lawyers got involved and said, no, you can't use the word certification, because it might get you into legal trouble. It's too specific, etc. So some bright person in the room said, okay, why don't we call it the Innovation Institute? And everyone was really happy with that until the Institute got funded and they discovered that innovation covers a very wide territory that goes way beyond certification. And this nonprofit institute started competing against the innovators who had founded it to do only certification. And they got a lot of money. So that's an example of the last 5 minutes. So whenever you're creating your little venture, just watch out for the lawyers in the last 5 minutes.
We have a question here on Douglas from Stuart. His microphone is broken, so he wrote a comment here. So I'm going to read it. An LLM comes at a problem from the context of the question. Do you think it will be able to have generalized context?
The answer to that would be, what I see happening is that LLMs that are absorbing vast amounts of energy and data centers and everything else can be and should be replaced by SLMs for much more specialized tasks, but also for generalized tasks. For example, this OpenClaw is basically an SLM, and it can do generalized tasks as well as specific tasks. This consumes far less energy, requires far less training. And I don't know if anyone here has read The Empire of AI. It's quite a recent book talking about the unholy alliance between the U.S. government and big AI in the United States. But basically, what this says is that a lot of the LLM move in data centers is done simply because it guarantees incremental progress, but it's not necessary. A lot of this can be replaced by low energy consuming SLMs. And in fact, the Chinese are busy doing that right now. So they've got like 80% reduction in energy consumption because they're using far more compact modules than these LLMs. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's the trend that I see happening, and I'd be glad to take another question on that if I didn't answer your question.
Douglas, could you just explain quickly to the community what an SLM is?
Yeah, it's a small language model. Mm-hmm. So a large language model compared to a small language model, and it's written in a much more compact way, and it's trained on a much smaller data set to basically it's in some ways it's much more sophisticated because it can recognize, it can create its own algorithms, and that allows it to recognize patterns without so much training. Does that answer the question?
Absolutely.
Okay. And the person who asked the question, did they have a comeback on that?
Look, I think it's really interesting. I wonder whether the robots are coming for us. I wonder whether...
We'll get to that.
Oh, Dr. Head. I'm trying to work out where the money is. Ultimately, to go back to your earlier point, where's the money? And I look at the models, the expense, they are very useful, but where's the money and who dies first?
Yeah.
Is Google going to win because it has revenue?
Yeah. You might remember the build out of optic fiber. Massive build out, and all the companies that build it out went bankrupt because it was 90% more than the available demand, and today it's completely overconsumed. So a lot of it is a question of timing. There's quite frequently this build out of infrastructure that produces very little in terms of revenue and profit, but investors get into it because they see the value in owning the infrastructure they just hope to have the staying power in order to do that. Sometimes it doesn't work very well with VCs who have a 2-year window, and quite often they take a bath because it might take 5 years. Although today, with the generational development of AI, it's those cycles are becoming a lot faster. So you're absolutely right to say, where's the money? And that's why I said earlier about these things to focus on, while everybody else is busy wasting their money building out these infrastructures and these large models. You don't want to fall into that trap. Continue? Do you want me to continue?
Yes.
Okay. There's a beautiful example in one of the biggest industries in the world. Most people think that energy is the biggest industry, and other people think that manufacturing is the biggest industry. That's not true. Pharmaceuticals and healthcare is the world's largest industry. It's a multi-trillion-dollar a year industry. And the interesting thing about it is that in pharmaceuticals, 95%, as I mentioned earlier, of all new drugs fail, usually at the expensive later stages. And why is that? Well, first of all, it's based on personal assumptions that end up being incorrect. Secondly, science that is faulty and no one wants to catch because they have rose-colored glasses on, speaking from experience. And surprise, surprise, rats are not humans. Almost all of our drug testing has been on rats. And 95% of the time, when the good results from rats are translated into humans, they don't work, because rats and humans are fundamentally different. Now, surprisingly, the FDA and other regulators have actually realized this and are right now have changed the system so that AI and something called organoids, that I'm not going to go into in a lot of detail, but are basically miniature organs, are now being used for testing products, and their stated intent of the regulators is to phase out animal testing, and that is beginning to happen now. So that's a really good example of how AI is being used to deal with the R&D problem. Now, the results of that are yet to be seen, but it's something that is not only in the works, but is happening right now. So there's a really remarkable thing, and that is what I call methodological artifacts are creating false conclusions. And as a result of that, errors are propagating across entire fields, and the lost time is in years or decades. So I'm going to get into that in just a moment. In fact, right now. So I want to tell you two stories. In 2014, I gave the keynote address to a similar level of association, the founding association of the International Association for Extracellular Vesicles. Now, for those of you who don't know, and most people don't, extracellular vesicles, or EVs for short, not electric vehicles, also known as exosomes, are the workhorses, the programmed working horses of cells. Cells each emit thousands of them all the time. They are program packages that send out in all living things, and they are instructions that actually go out to other cells, telling them what to do, how to behave, et cetera, et cetera. So they play a fundamental role in human life. However, for almost a decade, no one thought that was the case. And the reason for that was because the act of scientific observation was skewing the experiment. What was happening was that the cells were being dyed with an orange dye, and the electron microscope that was they were using to look at it had an excitation field so that it could see everything. When the vesicles came out of the cell, they disintegrated and released their carefully arranged protein packages into the extracellular space, and off they went. So people thought that these were actually just carriers to take the protein package out of the cell, and then the proteins would magically all together find their way into other cells. Well, that isn't what was happening at all. What was happening was that the orange dye that was used to dye the cells reacted with the electron microscope excitation and blew up the vesicles when they left the cell. And that wasn't learned, excuse me, until 7 years later, when a series of experiments, excuse me, I'm going to have to take a drink of water here. So 7 years later, that was discovered. But it took 3 or 4 years or 5 years after that for the scientific community to catch up with that error. And the reason I knew that was because when I told the story in front of 300 scientists who were at the founding meeting of this thing, I suddenly heard all this rustling of paper and all these people sending messages out on their mobile devices. And I realized that a lot of the scientists in the audience were still using the orange dye. And this was long after it had been published. So that goes to show you how slow science can be at actually cleaning up its own mistakes. Another example is with Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's with amyloid plaque. Now, most people have heard that there's been a huge focus and billions of dollars have been spent on trying to get rid of this plaque or somehow isolate it or whatever. That has been a wholesale failure. Billions of dollars spent at the expense of R&D that focused on the cause of the plaques. It turns out that the plaques are actually a defensive mechanism against overload of infection, heavy metals, and other contaminants in the body. And that is where the research should have been focused. But now, 10 years later, they're only starting to do that because Big Pharma got the bright idea that amyloid plaque was the way to go, and it wasn't. So once again, these assumptions at the beginning led to billions of wasted dollars. This is being repeated across studies. It's accepted into the literature and cited, and the correction is delayed for years, even after recognition. It causes misdirection and misinvestment. This is a gigantic opportunity for AI. This is a chance to change the way that healthcare is practiced and is developed. It's a beautiful opportunity. So in this sense, AI can be used as an error reduction engine. It can detect hidden assumptions. It can look for literature contradiction. It can audit experiment designs. Oh, believe me, that is so important because a lot of the times the experiment design is simply wrong. It can give novel insights by looking at across different fields that don't seem to be related at all. It can look at negative result mining. In other words, oh, that actually produced a negative result. That's not necessarily bad. That's what science is all about, and you can learn a lot from it. And it can judge the reproducibility of this. And I want to give you a concrete example that is really hot off the press. There's a nonprofit organization that was started by Michael Grava, who some of you might know, started web.de, which was the Google of Germany. And he made hundreds of millions of dollars when he sold that. He started a nonprofit called Forever Healthy, focused on longevity, healthy longevity. And they have just released an AI longevity tool for evaluating longevity therapies. You know that there's all these longevity therapies out there, all these claims. They're inconsistent. They can't be compared to each other. And they have developed a list of 396 criteria that run through automatically in a matter of minutes to judge the reproducibility and confidence level of these longevity developments and claims. This was developed by a nonprofit organization. He's handed it out. It's on the web. You just need to go to Forever Healthy and look at the AI longevity tool. I've played around with it a little bit. There's only one drawback to it, and that is that it depends on existing literature. So it won't catch the black swans. It won't catch the diamonds in the rough that don't have a lot of literature behind them. But having said that, it's a very thorough examination, and for the first time, it gives a standardized look at how all of these longevity claims compare to each other. So there's a class example of how you can use AI. Someone who knows maybe very little about medical practice can first ask AI to identify what the right questions should be, and
we can't hear you, Douglas. I think your headphones. Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. Yeah. Okay. That also means that I should speed up. So, blind spot detection services, AI research assistance for labs, risk and reproducibility reports, lab-specific knowledge systems, avoiding expensive early mistakes, and all of those are high value because one avoided mistake can save years of research and millions in funding, and we're already seeing this across the R&D community. But it's fertile ground, and I really recommend that people have a careful look at it. Okay, so that's sort of drilling down a little bit into R&D across all of these sectors. Part 3 is the big unknown. And the big unknown is, how long is AI going to remain collaborative between humans and itself? And if you look at things like OpenClaw, which actually defends itself against being shut down, you will see, and I'm sure you've had this experience yourself, that AI is not always collaborative and doesn't always follow the instructions that you give it. And so what we're seeing is the evolution of multiple interacting intelligences. One is cooperative systems, one is competitive systems, and one is autonomous systems. And all three of those systems are emerging onto the waterfront at the same time. And it's hard to see right now which one is going to be dominant. You see a lot of hopeful people saying, oh, well, the cooperative systems are going to be dominant because you'll always need humans. And a lot of skeptics saying, oh, yeah, you want to make a bet? Look at this over here. So the jury is still out on it, but there's one thing for sure, and that is that intelligence is no longer going to be singular to humans and higher animals. We're going to have enhanced human intelligence, we're going to have artificial intelligence, and we're going to have hybrid biological digital systems. And that you can see this beginning to happen right now if you broaden the definition of intelligence, which at this point, I don't say that you have to be self-aware to be intelligent. There are certain levels of intelligence that come long before self-awareness. So enhanced human intelligence, artificial intelligence, and hybrids are sort of the three dominant directions that are being taken right now. Now, you might remember in the title I talked about the Darwinian future of intelligence. You know, it's interesting. I'm sure a lot of you have read about Darwin's work, and the fact that he delayed publishing for 10 years because he was worried that people would abandon religion and society would disintegrate when they found out that we all actually come from monkeys. But one of the things that he concluded that has been widely accepted today is that humans are not the end of the chain. They are only a step in the evolutionary tree. And this is something that is really interesting when you look at the world's religions. Because if you look at the Western religions, most of them are focused on humanism. Humanity is the center of everything. But some of the Eastern religions, like Buddhism in particular, don't look at it that way at all. They say that humans are just a step along the ladder, and there's a whole lot of other things going on out there, and it's probable that we will replace ourselves or be replaced. No big deal. As a result of that, you've seen widely varying reactions from the different religions of the world to the possibility that humans are designing their own replacement. So what we're seeing is that life and environment are shifting from natural systems that humans think they can manage, somewhat arrogantly, to systems designed by AI, and that's a whole different battlefield. So basically, you're seeing the convergence of AI, biology, and material science combined with a whole bunch of disciplines that are way beyond just AI. So that brings us to the question of what we all heard of, and that is superhumans. So superhumans, enhanced humans, all of these things that science fiction has written about, that all the meta people and Elon Musk are talking about. But here's the question. When you talk about enhancing humans versus artificially intelligent systems, if you wanted to build a rocket, would you start with a car? And what I mean by that is, if you're going to build a super enhanced super intelligence, why would you start with a biological human? Excuse me. Why don't you just start from scratch and redesign the whole thing, which is exactly what happened with rocketry. So what we're seeing is molecular level redesign of entire systems, from understanding life to designing life that takes on its own form. That is resulting in the emergence of new forms of intelligence. And it's going to happen very quickly. And it somewhat goes like the production of algae in a pond with this logarithmic progress. It goes from first, oh, isn't that interesting, to, uh-oh, looks like we have a problem. There's a lot of algae growing on the pond, to, sorry, the pond is dead because it's been suffocated. And with AI, what we can see happening is that the space between we might have a problem and we're dead is sometime happening in minutes or days. We're seeing entire technological ecosystems being shut down when there's an AI failure. And this is by far the biggest risk that we're facing today. So when new forms of intelligence emerge, that goes on steroids. And so what we're faced with is this. In the short term, AI basically indicates R&D supercharging and redefining work. In the midterm, and you'll notice I'm not going to use the long term, because in the long term, forget it. We can't prognosticate what the long term is going to be. But in the midterm, AI is reshaping intelligence and life. It's leading to an explosion in diversity of soon-to-be sentient and non-sentient species. And the question of that is, well, we might be actually designing our replacements. And the question associated with that is, is humans replacing themselves necessarily bad? For example, humans are very poorly designed for space. We've seen that in the space station. Traveling to other planets is a serious problem. Even getting to Mars is a serious problem. Getting to Jupiter and Saturn is out of the question. So having other types of sentient species that don't need to breathe air and can withstand massive amounts of radiation is actually not a bad way to go. It's the same with living under the oceans. Humans are not, well attuned to living at a depth of 1 kilometer. So there is a lot to be said for creating intelligent species that actually are capable of surviving in these different hostile environments and for exploring different planets and different solar systems. But actually, the question that we're facing is no longer how can we use AI efficiently, it's whether we can navigate a world where intelligence is diverse, distributed, and no longer uniquely human. That is the great question of our time. I have an opinion on this, which I would welcome your opinions on this. But my opinion on it, after having looked at it for 25 years and torn my hair out about it and worried about it, is why me worry? Why try to find an answer when intelligence that is far greater than ours is going to see things that we don't and develop things that we can't? So I would argue that we're better off looking at very short-term benefits and keeping our eye on friendly AI, but not trying to predict or influence where it goes, because it's going to be a lot smarter than us. And the only thing that we can hope to do, as parents do with their children, is maybe give them the tools to work with and hope that they remember them. And that's about as far as we can go, in my opinion. That's, after 25 years, that's the conclusion I've come to. And then I translated that into what can the AI CASCAIS Association and the AI CASCAIS WhatsApp group do right now. And I want to take some time to talk about this and make this really interactive, because I want people to give their opinions on this, because now is the time to do this. This AI association, as you're going to hear from Eric and from Mikael, is brand new. It's an opportunity, unlike any other. And there are lots of other AI associations around the world that we can learn from, and that we can leverage knowledge, experience, failures, and successes from. And we should indeed do that. And we should hasten to use AI itself to structure and develop the organization, rather than just do it according to what humans think it should be. So I want to talk about one thing to start with, and that is that the AI Association, the CASCAIS AI Association, that's not the correct name, and the WhatsApp chat groups are different. At the moment, they're only indirectly connected. So all of these different chat groups that we have are not an integral part of the association. The association is actually a very small group that has been created to get this thing off the ground. And sooner or later, it will, of course, they will start to interface with each other. But at the moment, they're quite distinct entities, and I'm sure that Mikael and Eric will correct me on that if I'm wrong.
Well, yes. Creating this association made our community a legal entity. And the WhatsApp group and the legal entity will morph into each other in the future, absolutely. And we are also trying to meet people as much as possible once a week. Having these talks is also super important. to have something to talk about next time. But definitely, we are going to morph the group, the WhatsApp group, into the association. It's some of you guys also know that we are creating a pitch deck for the CASCAIS Council to see if we can get a clubhouse for the association where we can meet, where we can have a co-work, where we can have live workshops like this one instead of having it online, and where we can just meet and talk with each other instead of meeting at a public place like on screens. So and that's where I feel that the WhatsApp group can really morph into an association. If it's going to happen, we don't know. We're going to pitch it. I think we have good chances of it, and it would be absolutely amazing, and would raise our community to new heights. But yes, you're right. I mean, that's the deal. We want to morph the WhatsApp community into the legal association that we've created. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's also a huge opportunity and a risk, because you've got 200 or so people in the community, plus a number of rogue bots that have managed to keep their way in there, and then you've got the association, and how they come together is critical, because at the very beginning, associations can very quickly be swamped by either the demands of their members or their assumptions about what they think the members want. And so this is a huge opportunity that we have right now at this very moment for everybody in the room to get it right. And the first thing that I'm just going to throw out some ideas that I've been thinking about for some time. The first one is, I think we should use AI to help map the path, to avoid the mistakes that other associations have made. And I'm not just talking about AI associations. I'm talking about all kinds of nonprofit associations that just get off on the wrong foot because they've made the wrong assumptions or they're doing things in the wrong sequence. And by querying different AI tools and bots, we can actually gain a huge amount of wisdom as to what to avoid and how to put the puzzle together. So that's my first proposal, is to actually start leaning pretty heavily. And I know that AI has been used in various iterations to get this far, but to lean on it even more heavily to get the wisdom and experience that has been gathered by other associations. That will also help us avoid a real disease that I have run into for the past 20 or 30 years, and that is most associations cater to the lowest common denominator, and that is a huge mistake because they end up being dinosaurs before they even get off the ground. Mm-hmm. And so what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're dealing with different levels in the organization, whether it's, we call it tradition, transition, and transformation. So some people are into just, like incrementally using AI wherever they can to help augment their business. Some people are transitioning so that they're going to depend more heavily on AI, and other people are developing completely new AI tools. And in order to avoid catering to the lowest common denominator, you have to speak to those three audiences: tradition, transition, and transformation, because any one of them, if they get alienated, will leave the organization and you'll have a hole. So it's very important, I think, to include those three types of stakeholders, and keep in mind that the municipality of CASCAIS will be a stakeholder in this. So it's a de facto influential member itself. So definitely. Having said that, I had a little talk with Mikkel and Eric just before we started this, and one of the aims is to focus a lot on education, which is fantastic. But the question is, education is a big field. Like, what does that mean? So if it's educating the public, but what? and how. So I just want to give you some examples. These are questions and proposals at the same time, but I would love to hear from other people in the group. How about getting more females in the room? The problem with software development, generally speaking, is it has been male heavy, and we've all sort of white male heavy. And the result of that we've seen, for example, in facial recognition that can't recognize dark skinned faces. So we need a different mix of male to female, and we need a lot more color in the room, some of which we have. And CASCAIS is the perfect place to do that because Portugal, generally speaking, is much more friendly to people of color than most countries around the world. And so there's a fantastic opportunity here to have a very different mix than we have right now in the core groups that I've seen attending this. More women, more people of color. I think that this is just a wonderful opportunity. How about the elderly? So the elderly is the fastest growing group in CASCAIS, and they have lots of issues to deal with, mostly health and longevity issues. And a lot of that stuff is not unified in one place for them to get their hands on, and they don't really know how to use AI to do that. And for the municipality, dealing with this growing elderly population and all of their medical and housing and all other needs is really important. And CASCAIS is paying attention to it, and they have databases on it. But I think we could go a long way to optimizing that process. Young people, and I say people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, displaced by AI. This is happening more and more. We all know about it. We've all heard about it. I've got friends who have been put out of work, editors, platform developers for professional photographers, gone, And so there are training programs. Interestingly enough, there's one here on the east coast of Canada that is focusing on retraining people who've been displaced by AI in how not to fear AI and how to use it. And so I think that would be a really useful thing for the association to do. And that includes adapting to exponential growth of AI. So one place I think we can do this, and I've put forward a sort of an outline to Eric and Mikel on this. CASCAIS is the 2026 European Capital of Democracy. It amazingly enough, people might not think so, but it is actually quite a democratic city. And I think it has a huge number of opportunities, and it has initiated a huge number of projects in order to keep that going. So that's an opportunity because exponential growth of AI is both a boon and a threat to democracy. And I think you can use that as a hook for the association to get funding. The second thing is to start making AI tools that are coming into the field of vision of people who know nothing about AI to make them safe, because they're not. And they're already creating all kinds of problems for people who are way above their pay grade when they start handling these very volatile tools, OpenClaw being one of hundreds of examples. Meta's security expert said, "I think we'll see a period of chaos." Well, that's an understatement of the year. So one thing that we could do in the education area is say, here's where it's safe, and here's where it's definitely not safe, and you don't want to bankrupt yourself. And that is happening to a significant number of people. In CASCAIS, the number one issue for the municipality is affordable housing. So what we can help do with education is use AI to match needs with availability. And CASCAIS is doing this. It has databases for this, but again, AI could be used to really streamline that process through predictive housing allocation and optimization platforms. So those are sort of that's a rapid set of bullets for the association to consider. And then the question is, what can the WhatsApp groups and the association do together? And I think the number one thing, and Mikael already mentioned this, is the big role is informal exchange right now, which is proving to be extremely productive. These meetups and the online stuff and the chats, they're going all over the place. And it's fantastic. All you need to do is read some of the chats. And there's really useful stuff. Mikael just put one up there on how to make your website visible to AI. It's fantastic. So, there's all kinds of stuff going on, and just by being, a sharing point for that, the WhatsApp groups are already playing that role, and the association can begin to take that over. But you have to be careful that the association doesn't swamp itself with that stuff. Keep a certain wide open informal process that you keep a loose eye on, but don't saddle yourself with the problem of narrating it or managing it too much. There is some narration, there is some management moderation going on, but you don't want to get stuck, because that's a very time consuming role. So the next thing is, first, know what you have. So inventory the AI skills that are available in CASCAIS. That is being done, as Eric and Mikael mentioned at the top of this. But I would like to propose a twist. I would like to propose a three-tier database. The first one is what AI skills everyone has and is working with. Second, what non-AI skills they're leveraging with AI. What we've heard across the whole gambit, We've heard graphics, film, marketing, you name it. We heard it from just 15 people who spoke up. So what non-AI skills you're leveraging. And the third one is what types of projects you're working on. So my proposal is to expand the database to include those three things, because then you can cross map them. And I think that would be a very, very useful thing for the association to do with that database. And finally, where you need help from the community, what's your ask? And most importantly, I would include the generalists who can help the AI specialists avoid these big mistakes that I mentioned earlier. So bring the generalists into your AI fold. They don't have to know a thing about AI, but they know a thing or two about organizing startups, organizing nonprofit associations, and monetizing technology. That's it. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to turn it back to Mikael. I went on for quite a bit, and there we have it. Douglas,
I'm left with more questions that I had when I came into this talk. I want to ask you some stuff. Actually, I just read an article from Claude, that Claude is introducing Claude for small businesses. It's basically launched a package of connectors and ready to run workflows that put Claude inside the tools of small businesses.
That's correct.
Now, my question to you is, because we talked about, okay, where is the money right now for us people that work in the AI world? And my doubt is, and my challenge, at least for me, and I guess for others also, is where do we go, right? Because I have an AI agency. I'm an AI consultant. I know that I'm not going to have that forever. But when I see Claude launching this, I feel that I haven't even started. I'm already being swallowed.
Exactly. And that's
so
called...
My question to you is, how do we position ourselves to not be run over?
Yeah, and that's where the most important role, I believe, that the association can play is to prepare for exactly that, is to prepare for exponential change. It's logarithmic, and we're seeing it happening before our very eyes. And the only thing that I can see is to use AI to deal with AI. So what I would do is I would ask a number of AI bots to analyze the Claude tool as its money-making possibilities and its risks. The risks to small business who don't have a clue about AI security. Putting these things into their fundamental operating systems with all of their IP, constructing so-called glass walls that we know that AI is prone to ignoring, especially when you threaten it with being closed down. So that's what I would do. If I was the association, I would start using AI tools to test these tools that are coming out and then put the information out to the community and say, here's what we tested. You could become a kind of consumer reports for AI experts and for non-experts.
Yeah.
I think that would be a fundamentally important role in order to prepare for this exponential change. Even the AI folks are looking over their shoulder saying, man, I'm going to be obsolete in 6 months. So it's a problem that's shared by everybody. And the best advice that I can think of is to use the most up-to-date tools to analyze those tools that are coming on the market, because we all know they're full of holes, and that actually what Claude is doing is using us as a big experiment.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And we are creating the skills, and Anthropic is basically launching them, launching new versions on those skills that we fed it with.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah. So we've got to use fire to fight fire. That's the best thing that I can think of. And it's going to be a game of catch up the whole time. But to me, that's a fundamental role of both the association and the WhatsApp chat groups.
Absolutely, I agree.
Adapting to exponential change.
Absolutely. Guys, this has been mind-boggling. How do you feel? Anybody have any questions they want to ask?
Well, I'd like to ask a question, and that is, did people find this useful or just blithering? Or something in between?
I found it really useful. I mean, a lot of questions. As Mikhail said, we are going out of this with more questions than answers, and that's food for thought, right?
Oh, yeah.
Anyone else? Please tell me. Instructional with backup to why?
What was that?
Someone wrote that in the chat.
Oh, Stuart. Backup to why? Can you specify, Stuart? While Stuart is writing, I have another question for you. I'm very fascinated with the longevity part, and I'm fascinated with the timeline of this. Are we talking 5 years, 10 years? I mean, what do you think we're going to?
We're talking now because it's healthy longevity, and there's a generation of people, baby boomers, who want to live another 10 years, 15 years. So that and the younger generation is much more aware of the importance of their health to healthy longevity. So the important word is healthy. And the difference between today's longevity and healthy longevity is that the medical industry is basically focused on treating symptoms. Healthy longevity is focused on avoiding causes. Mm-hmm. And that's the seismic shift that is going on at every generational level, except maybe the baby boomers who are into, how do I fix what the problem that I've got? But they can also fix the problem that they've got through a lot of healthy longevity methods, even at that age. So the answer is it's happening right now. It's a massive explosion, and it's a wide open field.
And how do you think new species, how long is that transformation going to take, do you think? And are we already starting? For example, I imagine that we are talking to LLMs. Our whole memory system is going into LLMs. A young person that is maybe 7 years old and starts talking to an LLM, their whole life will have a whole history of memory in the LLM. Will that memory, because we are our memories, right? Will that memory, do you imagine something like that memory being uploaded to a server, and then the body dies, it can be downloaded into another body, robot body mix? What do you think?
Well, you have to remember something. There's a fly in that ointment, as they say in English. And the fly in the ointment is every cell, every piece of DNA in your body, not just your mind, but your body has a memory. And it's called epigenetics. It's things that turn your genetic switches on and off. Okay? And epigenetics are as much in your body as they are in your head. So you can download all the memories you want. You will never be the same person if you get rid of that body. You might have an awareness that you were a previous person, but you won't be the same person. So there's it's this thing that I talk about we can't prognose those types of things. It's impossible until you get super intelligence doing it. So the only thing that I can say is it's a bit arrogant to say you just download the memories and put them in another body. You will be able to do that, but it won't be the identical person, because you don't have that epigenetic history happening. Just to be clear, the difference between genetics and epigenetics is that genetics is the actual genes, and you're altering the hardware when you're screwing around with the genes. Epigenetics is turning those gene switches on and off. And that is shown to be the cause of 85% of all diseases, not genetic faults.
Right. Damn.
Yeah, like for example, like some simple things like some vitamins B, like folic acid, like for example, a lot of people will have a deficiency in such a simple thing that you can just eat every day, and this makes their body to be kind of less responsive to the changing in the environment, so making this system of epigenetics working kind of less ideal as it should be. So, like your body may want to adapt, but simply can't because of such a easy small thing that you can fix, but you just simply don't know about it.
And that's why a lot of these longevity clinics are doing panels of tests that you don't get out of conventional medicine. For example, conventional medicine will not find chronic low-grade infection. It's designed to find high-grade infections that are making you ill. But there's a ton of low-grade infections that exist in the human body that are never found but are aging you. And it's the same thing with heavy metals. The standard tests for heavy metals in blood are not accurate. Why? Because heavy metals aren't in your blood, they're in your tissue. So you need to force them out of your tissue before you can get a good idea of the buildup of heavy metals in your body, which is why there are so many publications coming out now on the association between heavy metal contamination and dementia, and why we're getting so much dementia, because our generations are the ones who have experienced this flush of heavy metals in all of the products that we use. And so we're exposed to it much more. So all of that is the here and the now, with massive opportunities for using AI in CASCAIS, working with the private healthcare system and the longevity clinics. So this is the here and now, right in CASCAIS, and it's relevant for the municipality because they have an aging population that they have to service, and they want to reduce the cost of that service.
Okay, we have Stuart also said, So he said instructional with backup to why. The callback to societal structure is useful as people forget the time change takes to happen. Society is potentially not ready. I reckon it gets funky.
Exactly. That's I think that's what Einstein said. He said that our technology is run ahead of our social ability to manage it, and this is of course the number one challenge of our time. Einstein didn't really think that much about artificial intelligence. I don't think. I never saw him write about it. But you know, it might be the answer to that problem is to embed artificial intelligence in our own thinking socially. To help us adapt to these things, because right now it's a bit of a mess, to put it mildly.
Besma, you have a question?
I have a question. Hi, everyone, and thanks, Douglas. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question, but back to the business and back to our experience with AI and with the work that we're doing. I read very recently an article that was suggesting that the labs, like OpenAI and Anthropic and all these labs in Silicon Valley, they are about 3 to 6 months ahead of all the startups in the West Coast. All the startups in the West Coast are about 6 months ahead of everybody in the East Coast, and everybody in the East Coast is about 9 to 12 months ahead of the rest of the world. Do you guys agree with that? Do you think, what's your view on that? And sometimes, because I follow a lot the news on the West Coast, and I think there's a huge disconnect between us following the latest and greatest on an hourly basis, and between where the people that we talk to, the businesses we're talking to, that they are still stuck in the 2023 ChatGPT mode. So just wanted to share a bit. What's your experience there?
But that's why I think the association can help fill that gap, because that's exactly correct. And I can tell you that the consultancies that I work with, it's appalling. They're still afraid of AI. They're not even using it. They're still using, Excel sheets. It's crazy. And so that's where I think the association can really help. By the way, what did they say about India and China?
That's a totally other article. I think everybody knows that China is well ahead. I'm not quite sure about India, but China definitely.
Well, those guys are big players. And in the West here, we're still trying to ignore them. And that's a big mistake. So I think that we need to, and the association could also do some outreach there.
I guess what I was trying to see if we all agree that this window of opportunity, or this time that Mikkel was talking about, I mean, we're not talking about 3 months, we're talking about maybe 1.5 years, 2 years, where before the rest of the population kind of follows, really.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Mikkel. Go ahead.
I mean, we talked about this before, Basma, but it's like a cat and mouse race, I feel. So I think the consultant's job is always staying ahead with every technology and learning it, and not being afraid of scrapping everything I learned today, because tomorrow I'm going to learn something completely different that makes what I learned yesterday completely irrelevant. And that is the strongest part of our job. And I think we need to have this possessive urge of learning all the time, because stuff is happening so quick. Even the article that I read today, right now, about Claude and small businesses, it just came out. And in 2 hours there will be something else coming out. So I think our job, Besma, is always staying ahead of everybody else, so we can teach and guide the people who are still stuck in ChatGPT right now, right? But I don't know. What do you think, Douglas?
I don't have much to add to that, except that we need to use AI to catch up with AI, and it's nothing unusual what you're saying in terms of, if you look at previous tech, the development of the internet and the World Wide Web and all of that. The developers were, traditionally a year and a half ahead of people. The question that I have is, are they really a year and a half ahead? What does that mean? And ahead of who? Are they ahead of the Chinese? Are they ahead of India? I think that's still a wide open field, but one thing is for sure, and this is something to emphasize to the municipality, the rest of us are being left in the dust. And if municipalities want their citizens to survive and prosper, they need to do everything possible to help them catch up with this exponential development. This is for sure. It's the biggest opportunity for the association and for the municipality of CASCAIS, which has the resources, the diversity. It's got so many things going for it. It could really be a model.
Absolutely. What do you guys think? Do you want to add to what Besma asked about?
Well, I mean, where to start? I think that's part of the question here, Mikkel. I mean, let me first thank you, Mikkel, for putting this together.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure, to hear you. And I fully agree. We should have this on a live session so the interactions can be much more fruitful and even organic just behind these kind of like screens. I mean, just two sense here. One is to understand, put it like the human in the loop, in the sense that what's the narrative that you want to put forward here as an organization and a set of people that are from CASCAIS trying to work on these areas, and then try to create these interfaces either with institutions like the City Hall, ourselves as whatever entrepreneurs, startup, leaders and consultants, or even looking abroad, and beyond of what's going on here today. Because, I mean, again, I think, Douglas, you were pointing this out, we are 1 year ahead of what? Of whom? For what? Because as you were saying, just one Indian business can make a decision and impacts 2 billion people. And they don't need to be 1 year ahead. They just need to wake up. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, look what happened with OpenClaw.
Exactly.
It forced all the big players to release their agents when they had been resisting it for 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, this is one thing. The second, I think it's a paradox of the consultant, right? The better the consultant you are, the more likely you are contributing for killing your own job as a consultant.
Yeah.
Because this is exactly what you're doing. You're providing the tools for somebody to come and actually improve and overtake you on the next day, especially with the velocity of tools and whatnot. Now, saying this, of course, there are some fundamental grounds. I was actually literally just delivering 6+1 courses on AI. And I was talking with the team about this, and of course you have all the tools, and which are always, tomorrow there's a new one, tomorrow there's a new one, tomorrow there's a new one. But you know what? After tomorrow, you're going to understand that the one that you discover tomorrow actually has some flaws. Because the security is not there, the leak is not whatever. So, I mean, some narrative, I think we can decide and can, frame it. One, we use AI for public good. 2, GDPR/compliance/ whatever, some sort of careful noted basis on security and how you are using these sort of tools. I think this can be something that we can easily, quote unquote, cluster together, when we are addressing, whoever wants to list us externally. Internally, as an association itself, this, I think, the opposite. I think is exactly, or should be, a space of exploration, right? Where we can bring and challenge each other's narratives exactly through the diverse experience that we can bring to the table. Right?
Absolutely.
This, I think,
I hope that when you do the recording of this, that you take what Jose just said and transcribe it. because I think he's exactly right.
Yeah.
As I said, education is a very big field, and you have to determine both externally and internally what the association is going to do in this education field, if education is what you want to focus on, and deciding if that narrative is going to be focused on the municipality of CASCAIS or the community in CASCAIS, or if you're going to go outside there and talk internationally, because everyone here is working internationally, and who does what when. So thank you, Jose, for encapsulating that far better than I could.
Cool. So we are getting to the bitter end. Does anybody else have any questions for Douglas or for anything else that we've talked about?
Well, I have one I put on the thank you, Douglas, actually, which is, sorry, are you here in Cascais as well, Douglas?
Right now, I'm sitting on the east coast of North America, not by my own choosing, but I'm hoping to get back to Cascais as soon as possible.
Fair enough, thank you.
All right. If nobody else has questions, I can only say that I feel that this was eye-opening. I could actually ask you so many other questions, but it's getting late. But I really want to thank you, Douglas. It's I think what I appreciate most is that you actually pulled us out of all that daily AI noise that we all get, and actually made us think about where this is actually going for real. And I think that's exactly what the association also is here for, to talk about these things that aren't always comfortable, but are super realistic. And I mean, your view on things is amazing, man. And I feel that I'm enriched. So thank you, Douglas. I really hope that we'll see you in person soon in Cascais, and you can count on us for any help you need. I'm at least here for you. And yeah, thanks a lot, and thanks a lot, guys, for being here. It's been amazing to hear Douglas and all of you guys also. And I'll see you next time.
And thanks for having me, Mikael, and for inviting me. I really appreciate it. And if I can just leave everyone with a summary: adapting to super fast change, I think, is the real challenge that we're facing here, and also the opportunity.
Yeah, adaptability, no doubt. Being pragmatic with stuff. Yep, totally. Cool. Douglas, I'll talk to you soon. Eric, I'll talk to you tomorrow. and yeah, keep in touch, everybody. Yeah, and share stuff in the community, please. We'll talk soon.